talked so much about blood sugar? We can. This is something that people are often concerned about. Fruit, most people think, is a problem because it contains too much sugar. I've already sort of talked around this a little bit, but the fact is that it's the presence of fiber and water which slow down the absorption of sugar into the bloodstream. So fruits, generally speaking, have a low glycemic load, which means relatively little impact on blood sugar. Okay? This is something that's measurable. It's been measured, charted. You can look it up. But most of the fresh fruits, including things that are pretty sweet like mangoes and pineapples, are low glycemic load foods. The only fresh fruits that are not low glycemic foods that I can think of are the very sweet ones, like bananas, cherimoyas, durian, jackfruit. These are moderate glycemic load foods. So they have a moderate impact on blood sugar. The only high glycemic load fruits that I know of are dried fruits. So if we look at the chart, 0 to 9 is low glycemic load. 10 to 19 is moderate, and 20 and above is high. An orange has a glycemic load of 4, an apple of 3, watermelons 4, I think. Mangoes and pineapples are around 8, 9. Top of the low range of the chart. Okay, papayas are around 4. Apples are in that 4 range. Pears similar. Grapes might be a 5. These are all low glycemic load. Bananas are going to be around 13, 14. Okay, in the moderate range. Whereas dried fruits, much higher. Okay, dates. Now the way dates are sold, they're not dried like raisins are dried, but they're allowed to dry on the tree before they're picked, usually. Right? Most dates are picked after they've had some time to dry out. They grow only in desert conditions. Most varieties of dates require 100 days of 100 degrees Fahrenheit, which I think is 40, 42 degrees Celsius. 100 days of that. So in the 14 years I've been here, living at this elevation, we've never had one day at that temperature. And they need 100 days a year, okay? So they would never grow here. It's not hot enough and it's too wet for them. They grow in the desert. They grow on palm trees. And so what happens is, when they're ready to pick, when they're edible, they're not that sweet. They look like little yellow plums, most varieties of dates. They're not wrinkled. They're a little bit juicy, not terribly juicy, but they're not dry, and they're not so sweet. They become sweet as a result of drying, as the water evaporates over time, because the desert, the sugar becomes more concentrated. And so dates are picked when they're already brown and wrinkled and very sweet. How sweet? Well, glycemic load of dates can be as high as 42. Remember, anything over 20 is high. That's very high. So I would not recommend eating more than a handful of dates at once. I've probably fasted a dozen people from Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, these places where dates have been there forever, people whose families are from those places, they'll tell you, oh yeah, you don't eat more than a few at a time. Okay, whereas American raw vegans think, oh, you take a dozen dates and stick them in a blender with some water. That's a terrible idea. It's a huge blood sugar boost for most people. And you might be capable of maintaining healthy blood sugar, but it means your body is working hard to do that. Why would you create that for yourself? Okay, it's not a good idea. All right? Dried fruits, things like raisins, are best eaten in the ratio that they appear in nature. What do I mean? Well, have you ever gotten a bunch of grapes and there was like 2 little raisins on there? You could probably have 2 raisins for every 100 grapes. Okay? You shouldn't be eating a lot of them. because they're going to suck the water out of your body, and because they have a much higher glycemic load. Why? They taste a lot sweeter, don't they? That's because they have almost no water. Raisins are typically sold between 20 and 25% moisture content. Grapes are around 82% water. So you've taken 3/4 of the water away, roughly. That means the sugar is much more concentrated, and it's going to have much more of an impact on your body. So generally speaking, don't eat them. Eat fresh food. Okay, does this make sense? Because if you dry it out, it's going to have a much higher glycemic load, which means your body works harder. That's if you take the water away. If you take the fiber away, what happens? Same thing. Okay? Take oranges, juice them, so you're drinking only the water, the juice, not the fiber, and the glycemic load is 11. Almost 3 times what the fresh orange is. It's still not that high, but it's 3 times higher. Okay, it's going to have much more of an impact on your blood sugar. Does this make sense to everyone? All fruit juice will jack up your blood sugar. Not healthy. Eat whole foods. Okay, eat whole foods. Carrots and beets, same thing. If you juice them, lots of sugar, no fiber. High glycemic load foods. These juices. Okay? You're gonna avoid problems by avoiding high glycemic load foods. Stick with fresh fruits, soft tender leaves, almost all low glycemic load. Well, putting in something in a blender won't necessarily increase the glycemic load, but putting something through a juicer will, because you're removing the fiber. Okay? So if something's intact, it should have no impact on glycemic load as far as I know. There is another reason why not to finely chop everything. Okay, when you cut an apple in half, what happens to the exposed surfaces? They turn brown. That's oxygen destroying nutrients. If you take the same apple and chop it into 1,000 tiny pieces, you've now dramatically increased the amount of nutrients that you're losing to oxidation. So this is why the best you can do is to eat whole foods, right? Years ago, I had a client who became an intern, a staff member, and he liked to take bananas. He'd take like a dozen bananas, put them on a plate and mash them up with a fork. He liked to eat them like baby food. Okay. The first time I saw this, I said, that's not a good idea. I said, what do you mean, why not? There are actually a couple things going on. The first one I've sort of given away already. What is it? Why might you not want to do that? He's now oxidizing most of it. Okay? Why else do you think he might not want to do that? What do you think he's likely to do now that he's prepared that? What do you think he's likely to do with it? Eat it all. Even if he doesn't need it all. Okay, so when I eat bananas, I might take 5 or 6 bananas in their peels and put them on a plate. And I'll pick up the first one and eat it. And if I'm still hungry, I will be, I'll pick up the second one and peel it and eat it. And if I'm still hungry, I'll pick up the next one and peel it and eat it. So I'm never over-committing. I might be over-committing, but it's going to be by a fraction of a banana, right? At the most. And the chances are good that I'll eat the whole banana. But I'm over-committing, so maybe, let's say I knew I wanted more because I wouldn't have peeled it if I didn't. So I wasn't done yet. I get halfway through and I'm done, I'll probably eat that extra half a banana. That's a pretty small issue, okay?
You see, sometimes on hot summer days, you just fancy a bit of a juice, and the apple juice, freshly squeezed, and if you put some lemon juice, it doesn't change color, it kind of keeps taste, but it changes it to the sour bit. It's so refreshing.
Okay. Sometimes people on a hot day want to get some tequila and mix it with, you can do whatever you want. I'm just telling you what's optimal. You don't have to justify it, I'm just letting you know what's optimal. You do whatever you want. Fruit juices are going to jack up your blood sugar. or make your body work hard to try to maintain it where it was. Not really a very good idea to be doing this very often. Incidentally, I mean, I will say, while that, because of your taste buds, you know, because of each person's individual taste buds, you might crave something like cold apple juice. It will actually make you thirstier. It might taste good, but it's not really, the thing that's going to best quench your thirst, anybody want to guess? That would be water. If you want to quench your thirst, drink water. Okay? My body doesn't actually crave anything except water when I'm thirsty.
And coconut water, you cannot add it on anything?
It does raise an important point. Coconut water isn't water, it's food. It contains calories and it contains nutrients. And so if you are drinking coconut water between every meal, your digestive tract's not resting. And unless you live in the southernmost part of London, there probably aren't a lot of palm trees. So coconuts are likely to not be so good anyway. Like the young Thai coconuts that come shaved, most of them are going to be rancid. Unless, I mean, there are various providers, unless, you know, it's a company that really takes care. Well, I have a client that's in the business, and he says they keep them cold. But I went to the biggest company's website. They don't keep them cold enough. They say on their website the temperature they maintain them at. It's not cold enough to prevent them from going rancid. And without that outer husk, that's what happens. So personally, I don't drink coconut water unless it's coming out of the coconut, like the whole coconut. If I lived in London, I probably wouldn't be drinking a lot of coconuts. There might be a Caribbean market somewhere where they sell whole ones. A little harder to get into. The shaved ones, which we buy here, we buy them because we know where they're coming from, but they have to be kept cold. They go rancid very quickly if they're not kept cold. That's why it's served cold to you. We don't want to serve it cold. I'd rather not. But it has to be cold, or it goes rancid very quickly. So you go to the Whole Foods in London where they've got these brown coconuts sitting on the shelf for 4 weeks. They're not edible. They're rancid. You cannot maintain freshness if you take the outer husk off the coconut.
What temperature would be required to keep them safe?
I don't remember.
But refrigeration temperature should be fine?
Yeah, they kept refrigerated. They don't keep them refrigerated. One of this big company in Thailand. So just know, I mean, it's one thing to occasionally have, like during the festival, there was always a snack in the afternoon. And there's food all the time. We have 3 meals a day. You know, we're not, some of these events, it's like an orgy of overeating. And I don't recommend, you know, I'm not going to encourage that. So we don't do that here. We have 3 meals a day and we sit down as a whole group, and it's very nice. But there's always food on the dining room table. The dining room is always open. You can always walk in there and get something to eat if you want to. And then in the afternoon, we would have a snack out here. And it's one thing, that's a special occasion. But if you're constantly throughout your day drinking coconut water between meals, your digestive tract's always working. And that's the opposite of what you want to do.
And snacks are fruit.
Usually, or coconut water, or juice, or smoothie. I mean, they're special things. It just depends on what it is. Sometimes a snack would be something we didn't have enough of for meals. We have it something so everyone can try it. We have a neighbor who makes fresh sugar cane juice. You had it? Amazing. Yeah. So every year he'll come up and he'll pull in, and he's got his juice press in the back of the car, back of the pickup truck, and he'll make fresh juice for us. Everyone can have as much as they want. Another day we might do a smoothie, or most days it's just fruit. Some days it's coconuts.
And smoothies are mixed or just normal?
I don't know.
Depends.
It's whatever. Yeah, they're compromises. It's compromise. Again, your results are going to be based on your consistent choices. So what are you doing day in and day out, week after week, year after year? That's going to give you the results. Every once in a while you want to make a compromise, that's fine, as long as it's not too big a compromise. I was 2 or 3 years raw. I decided to compromise by eating a whole vegetarian pizza. I couldn't move for several days. I was in serious pain. That was a bad idea. Won't do that again. Okay? But, a smoothie as a compromise, not that big a deal. But that's the difference. If you're doing it every day, as some people do, it's not really that healthy. Much healthier to eat whole food. But if you're eating whole food every day and twice a month you want to have a smoothie, that's fine. No problem. Or you're on vacation and you're out and you're getting smoothies every day for a week, that's okay. But ideally, every day, your normal life should be whole foods, mono meals, or simple salads, because that's the best you can do. And if you do the best day in and day out, you're going to get amazing results. If you're making compromises as your normal way of being, you're going to get pretty compromised results.